Evil Dead Rise director Lee Cronin recently teased a redacted version of his latest script. Has the upcoming director left us hints that he's continuing an ancient, nightmarish franchise, perhaps? Let's get into it! Hey everybody, welcome to the Killjoy Jake YouTube channel. Before we get into today's update, I'd like to thank my wonderful patrons that keep this page alive. Without these folks, I wouldn't be able to keep doing this page, and I greatly appreciate you all. Consider supporting this channel by clicking on the link in the description of this video or by pressing the join button on my page. Now let's get into the update. A few days ago, writer-director Lee Cronin shared with us the title page for a new script he's working on for the Atomic Monster and Blumhouse merger. For those who don't know, James Wan and Jason Blum recently announced that their two companies would be merging into one super conglomerate to produce horror flicks. It's similar to what's going on with Radio Silence and Project X Entertainment, but on a much larger scale. They will apparently be kicking that off with whatever Lee Cronin is cooking up next. THR reports that Lee Cronin is rising with a new mysterious project described as a modern take on something ancient, with a release date already set for April 17th of 2026. Talking about this new project, Cronin says, collaborating with Jason, James, and the wonderful teams from these two storied, massively successful organizations is what perfect nightmares are made of. Getting to return to New Line Cinema and my wonderful partners over there is the cherry on top. Jason Blum doubles down on this apparently ancient idea by saying Cronin has an intriguing modern take on something quite ancient that I think audiences will love. This also marks an exciting series of firsts for us, Atomic Monster and Blumhouse's first time working with Lee, and our first joint project for Warner Bros. We can't wait to get started. So right there, we have a ton of clues that this could be a brand new A Nightmare on Elm Street flick. If it's Cronin's literal use of the titular word there, or Jason Blum describing this new flick as unearthing something ancient. The only horror series that is more ancient than Freddy that I can think of is Friday the 13th, and that's only by a year. My god, the updates regarding that film franchise have been anything but plentiful. Jason Universe my ass. Freddy is, hilariously enough, a tad easier to resurrect than old Jason this time around. With the addition of Jason Blum talking about Warner Bros. Working on this project too, that all but seals the deal on this theory being, in my opinion, 99% there. This isn't even remotely the first time Jason Blum has had an interest in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, as he's gone on record several times in the past few years, basically foaming at the mouth for the rights to this dreamy IP. Some notable examples include this recent clip from Jake's Takes.
Since you brought back Halloween and The Exorcist, would ever want to get your hands on Freddy Krueger?
For sure. Atomic Monster, my partner James Wan, he really has his eye on that. If we get the rights, we'll do it.
And going back almost 2 years exactly to June of 2022, speaking with Screen Rant, Blum said that he could easily get Robert Englund back in the makeup despite the fact that Englund has discussed his retirement from the character multiple times. Blum tells Screen Rant, I could get anyone back. I mean, Ellen Burstyn was 87, I got her back in The Exorcist. 75, he's young. The now 77-year-old Robert Englund has said that he's, quote, too old and thick to play the character anymore. Is that thick with 2 or 3 C's, Robert? He cites the extensive makeup process and stunts as the primary reason. This is completely fair for Robert, who has already played Freddy in 8 movies and multiple cameo appearances, most notably, probably, the Goldbergs.
Who do you think you are?
Your worst nightmare.
These remarks are similar to Doug Bradley's, the actor behind Pinhead, who also is pretty done with sitting in a makeup chair for hours on end. What I will say is that Jason Blum seems to have a way with people, coaxing them back into familiar roles. He has a point about Ellen Burstyn despite the quality of The Exorcist Believer. He still got her to do it. Likely because of that fat paycheck, not so much the script. What was that dumb lore-breaking line about the patriarchy again? Who cares? The Blumhouse and Atomic Monster merger needs a big kickoff, and what better way to do it than reviving a cold in its grave yet beloved slasher franchise. Although the Five Nights at Freddy's movies are still on their way, which will serve as Blumhouse's flagship franchise for the rest of their time before this merger, the two companies are certainly looking for hits in the future. What better way of doing that than moving on from one Freddy to the next? Or should I say, the OG Freddy? To touch back on some of my criticisms with the latest Exorcist outing, this seems like an excellent course correction for Blumhouse financially. The majority of horror fans didn't want 3 new Exorcist flicks, Not as much as they wanted more Halloween movies, at least. The difference there stems entirely from the fan bases behind these franchises. Horror fans will always get behind a new slasher movie because at the end of the day, a slasher flick is always going to be at least fun, even if it's bad. The Exorcist Believer was not fun, nor was it well written. It might have gotten a little dark at the end there, but that doesn't make up for the atrocity that they committed against Chris McNeil or the stupid as hell Demon Fog. What was going on there? A new Freddy Krueger movie, whether good or bad, will have fans who haven't had a bad dream since 2010 super excited. I mean, look, it's coming from Blumhouse, which is a studio that may not have the best track record for franchise continuations, but with writer-director Lee Cronin at the helm, I'm sure it can't be the worst Nightmare on Elm Street flick. Evil Dead Rise alone should be a testament to that, but also don't forget that most of the Nightmare sequels suck. It will surely top Nightmares 2, 4, 5, 6, and the remake. Maybe some hot takes there, but I'm just not crazy about any of those. I loved what Lee did for Evil Dead, and I'm sure he can reinvent Nightmare 2 with some hopefully stronger characters and more bizarre, less goofy, nightmarish kills. I believe there's a good chance that A Nightmare on Elm Street is written underneath all of those scribbles. Robert Englund is the biggest what if of this entire scenario, however. He's gotten back into the makeup a few times since his last appearance on screen in Freddy vs. Jason, but it's mainly been for cameos or charity events. The Goldberg's appearance is insane, by the way.
I never knew any of my fathers, and I turned out just fine.
I imagine they could shoot Robert in the makeup for close-ups and have another performer do the stunts, which I can't see him saying no to alongside that big old Blumhouse paycheck. You know that's gotta be a decent number with more zeros than one might expect. As a fan of really only 3, maybe 4 of these movies, I'd love to see this franchise get another shot. I think there's so much room for improvement with the Nightmare franchise that really only a few filmmakers have cracked, with Wes Craven, of course, having it down the best. It is his baby after all. Lee Cronin's use of visuals and well-crafted VFX in Evil Dead Rise gives me faith in this filmmaker to deliver an excellent continuation. If this theory is true, of course. What other ancient idea would they be working on? And why would they tease it like this if it wasn't some sort of beloved franchise being meddled with again? There's a reason all of these companies are involved, and I think it has to be Freddy. To make one last point, and I promise I'll finish this video, let's compare the careers of the 2 most recent Evil Dead directors, Fede Alvarez and Lee Cronin. Fede created an online short that impressed Sam Raimi so much he gave the next movie in his beloved franchise to the up-and-comer. Evil Dead 2013 was a success at the box office, and this launched Fede into the mainstream. He might have created his own horror franchise with the Don't Breathe movies, but his career mostly consists of franchise continuations in the Alien, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Millennium franchises. The same seems to be happening with Lee, who first impressed Sam Raimi with his original The Hole in the Ground, which got him the 5th installment of Evil Dead. So we'll just have to see which route he goes down next. Either way, I'm just excited to be getting more from this director. He's 2 for 2 with me so far. Hey everybody, before we wrap up today's video, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to my new channel, GullGotha, where I'll be playing horror video games. It's been tough trying to keep my head afloat here with just this one channel lately, so I would greatly appreciate it if like 900 of you just subscribed to this second channel. Let's try to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the summer. Thank you all so much for your support, and I hope you dig the vibes on the second page, filled with longer and more goofy videos. The link to that channel will be in the description below. You can also just look up GullGotha, spelled like Seagull Gotha. Please subscribe. What do you guys think about this news, though? Could it be a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie or an original banger to kick off the Blumhouse Atomic Monster merger? Let me know in the comments of this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.